As all you longtime viewers realize, it is very, very, very rare for this. Well, as a matter of fact, this is the very first time this Grown Big hasn't been a one-man show, but this is a critical topic. And frankly, we are unbelievably lucky, blessed, to have Todd Stittelberg, my friend, the Antler King himself, guest hosting with us so we can get this one right. And that is, and Todd, just a little bit of background here, has been a whitetail nutritionalist for what, 30 years?
Over 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This man knows whitetail nutrition like the back of his hand. He has forgot more than I think I know. Todd, I want to talk overwinter feeding.
Okay.
A lot of people go out and they, very, very well-intentioned, are trying to help deer overwinter by going ahead and supplementally feeding. The problem is, is that a person can do more harm than good doing this. What should a person be concerned with so they don't end up trying to do good but end up doing harm?
I think the most important factor is digestibility. Okay. I could take my hat off my head, feed it to a goat will eat it. But what is that? How much of that will the goat be able to digest and actually put into nutrients that they can use for body growth or just overall body maintenance? So digestibility is very, very important.
Okay.
And so,
if you don't mind, so what you're really saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is it doesn't really matter that much as far as whitetail health what a deer eats, anywhere near as much as what a deer can digest. What minerals and vitamins and energies and proteins are they actually able to get out of that food and utilize?
absolutely, yeah. And so when you look at a number of different things that are commonly fed, of course, corn probably would be number one.
Mm-hmm.
Can deer digest corn? Yes, they can. It's a good source of energy, but it can also cause some stomach problems. It can cause some acidosis, and so on. So corn by itself, I never ever would recommend just feeding corn by itself.
And to get down into the weeds a little bit here, the reason that you don't want to feed corn over winter has a lot to do with the fact that the microbes in their rumen have went ahead and evolved to digest woody browse.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to over the summer, fall, eating corn, no problem, because the biology in the rumen has adopted to go ahead and break it down. But now you put that whitetail on a nothing but woody browse diet for a month and then hit them with that corn. That's when, boom, all of a sudden there's a shock to that system, correct?
That's certainly part of it. I think the other thing that is important to talk about is simply that corn can be pretty hard on a deer's digestive tract. Probably the easiest way to explain it would be if we had a steady diet of baked beans for every meal
Sure.
for a week. We're going to have some gas. We're not going to feel that good. And in a nutshell, that's kind of what corn can do. A high level of corn in a deer's diet can do to that deer.
So are there ways to actually feed corn safely?
Yes. One way would be to use a digestive aid. With that, yeast is important. Other probiotics are also important in helping or aiding that deer digest corn. Feeding corn along with a protein pellet or protein and energy pellet would be also another option. But by itself, I definitely would stay away from it.
Okay. Now, if somebody wants to truly do max good with feeding, what do you do?
I guess the top program, if you would be a pelleted feed or a mixture of pellets and ground grain sources that contain at least right around 16% protein. Energy content, I would recommend a 4 to 6% fat level. And then also we got to have vitamins and minerals in there. So more of what I would consider a complete feed.
Okay. And now you are actually starting this feeding. Here's the risk. You go, especially up in northern Wisconsin or northern anywhere that realizes true winters. These deer, they've been feeding on winter browse, all that stuff, woody browse. Now, boom, we've got a food source out there. How do we go ahead and actually physically feed these deer to minimize stress and maximize the benefit?
Well, you could look at an elevated feeder, a trough type feeder, keep it up off the ground, number one. Number two, it's a commitment. I think it's important for people to realize that you don't want to start feeding, feed the deer for 2 weeks or a month, and all of a sudden they say, I can't afford it anymore, I'm going to stop. That can do more harm than good also.
And that is one of the things I was hoping you were going to mention, because if you do that, if you're sitting there doing an overwinter feeding program, what's going to happen in areas that receive true winters, generally speaking, the deer, they're going to start going like this. You're going to get more and more and more and more deer. If you stop feeding, what are those deer going to do to your habitat? They are going to absolutely trash it. I mean, it's going to be hard on the habitat's going to take a little bit extra strain because of this to begin with. Now you get rid of that food source, and those deer are literally going to destroy that habitat. And at the same time, they don't have the nutrition because there's not supposed to be that many deer naturally in that area over winter. If you're going to feed, you have to do it right.
Exactly.
Just take a step back before you ever start. Truly think, can I make the time commitment? Can I make the financial commitment? And then go ahead. And if those answers are yes, then consider doing a supplemental feed program. Otherwise, please correct me if I'm wrong, but those blocks right there, you don't have to worry about those. You can go ahead and throw them out any darn time you want, and that's going to do nothing but good, and it's not a large enough food source to make a whole bunch of deer go like that.
No, and you're right. I mean, that block right there, it's 18% protein. It's got a yeast culture in it to help deer digest not only the block, but everything else that they consume, whether it be browse, forage, whatever. Vitamins and minerals. It's a complete feed, basically.
And you just hit on a key that biologists have pounded in my head so often. What the whitetails are eating, it's not necessarily the nutrients they're getting out of that, but that it helps them break down this other food, and it helps them break down that other food and this other one and get more nutrients out of it. And that, please, I'm just going to take a guess here, but that is one of the things that in truly high quality foodstuffs, they provide that. They're not only providing the protein and the minerals, but they are also aiding in digestion of these more difficult to break down plant matters and getting more nutrients from it. You add it all together, and frankly, in my experience, for as much as people want to talk about increasing antler growth, nothing in my experience has ever done more to positively increase antler growth than a very well thought out and thorough feeding program over winter in areas that deer are experiencing winter stress.
Absolutely. Here in the upper Midwest, we don't realize the stress and the strain that our winters put on our deer.
Exactly. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. This is one of those things like you're going to do it, you do it right, or you just plain don't bother. Feeding is a very, very well-intentioned but potentially dangerous thing to do to whitetails. You have to make darn sure that you follow the proper procedures for feeding whitetails. Ask yourself beforehand whether or not you can make the financial commitment and the time commitment. If you can make a big difference as long as you use quality products. But if you can't, don't bother, Todd. Thank you. This was invaluable.
Welcome, Steve.